Daniel had always believed his life would be simple. He was a janitor, nothing more and nothing less. Every day he walked the shining halls of the Citadel, sweeping and mopping floors that stretched longer than city blocks on Earth. The Citadel floated among the stars, a fortress of light and shadow where rulers from across the galaxies came to bow before the Queen. But Daniel did not come here as a guest or a leader. He came because he needed work. He came because he had a daughter, Lily, and she needed him to keep going. She was his reason to wake up, his reason to scrub the floors until his hands grew rough and his back ached. He never complained, not once, because she was all that mattered. The Citadel was full of whispers. Everyone spoke of the Queen, though never too loudly. She was not just any ruler. She was the Queen of Galaxies, the one whose gaze could silence armies and whose command could wipe planets into dust. Daniel often heard the stories while working, stories told in hushed tones by guards and attendants. They said no one had spoken to her directly in decades. She had closed her heart to all, keeping herself apart from the universe she ruled. Leaders came and went, bowing low, speaking through intermediaries but never daring to meet her eyes. Her silence was heavier than any weapon, and her presence colder than the void. Daniel had never even seen her properly. He only glimpsed her throne from afar when he polished the chamber floors. The throne room was unlike anything on Earth. It stretched into the sky with arches that glowed faintly, and the walls shimmered with patterns that seemed alive. The Queen sat high above, still and unmoving, like a figure carved out of light. He could not look at her for long for fear of drawing unwanted attention. To him, she was untouchable, distant, and surrounded by an air that pushed even the boldest souls away. He kept his head down, focusing on his broom, making sure Lily stayed close whenever she visited him at work. Lily was a bright child with a smile that lit up even the darkest corridors. She had long brown hair, always a little messy because she liked to run and explore. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, and she asked questions about everything she saw. She loved stars, planets, and stories about faraway places. Daniel sometimes worried she would get lost in the endless halls, but she always found her way back to him. She would sit nearby as he cleaned, humming little songs or drawing on scraps of paper. To her, the Citadel was not a place of fear. It was a place of wonder. One quiet evening, as Daniel pushed his mop across the polished floor of the throne chamber, Lily wandered further than usual. He did not notice at first because he was focused on his work. His back was turned when her small footsteps echoed on the marble floor. By the time he looked up, she was already standing in the center of the great chamber, gazing at the Queen seated above. His heart nearly stopped. He dropped the mop and rushed forward, panic rising in his chest. He had heard the stories, the warnings, the whispers of those who dared too much. He was terrified of what might happen. The attendants gasped, their eyes wide with horror. The guards shifted uneasily, their weapons ready, though none dared to act without the Queen's command. The chamber grew heavy with silence thicker than stone. Daniel's voice caught in his throat as he called out to his daughter. He expected the worst. He expected to see the Queen's cold eyes turn into fire. But something happened that no one had ever imagined. The Queen leaned forward. For the first time in centuries, she moved with interest. Her gaze, brighter than any star, fell upon the little girl standing fearlessly before her. Lily tilted her head, completely unaware of the weight of this moment. She smiled as if she were meeting a new neighbor back on Earth. Her voice rang softly across the chamber, and everyone heard it clearly. "You look lonely," she said, her tone simple and kind. The words struck the chamber like thunder. No one spoke to the Queen of Galaxies, not like that, not ever. Daniel froze in place, his face pale, his hands trembling. He wanted to grab his daughter and pull her back, but he was rooted to the spot. The attendants exchanged frantic glances, unsure if they should intervene. The guards raised their weapons slightly, waiting for the Queen's command. But she did not raise her hand to punish. Instead, her lips parted and her voice flowed like the echo of stars drifting in deep space. "Why do you say that, child?" Her voice was not harsh, not cold, but soft, carrying a weight of sorrow buried beneath endless years. Lily, with the courage only a child could have, stepped closer. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He felt as though the floor might vanish beneath him. But Lily only smiled brighter. "Because no one talks to you," she answered. "My dad says people should always have someone to talk to. I can be your friend." The silence stretched again, but this time it was different. The Queen of Galaxies did not strike, did not command death, did not silence the child. She stared, her glowing eyes unreadable. The chamber seemed to bend under the weight of her stillness. For centuries, leaders, warriors, and rulers had feared to approach her, but here stood a little girl offering friendship as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. Daniel finally found his voice, his words shaking with fear. "Lily, come back," he pleaded softly, stepping forward. He bowed low, his knees nearly touching the floor. "Please forgive her, Your Majesty. She doesn't know—" His voice cracked under the pressure of terror. He was certain this was the end. He braced himself for punishment for the unbearable wrath he had only heard about. But the Queen raised her hand gently, stopping him. The guards froze in place, lowering their weapons slightly. The attendants held their breath, too afraid to speak. And then something happened that no one in that chamber had ever seen before. The Queen smiled. It was faint, small, but it was real. Her lips curved as if remembering how to move, as if breaking through centuries of silence and sorrow. "You would be my friend?" she asked, her voice carrying a strange note of wonder. "Yes," Lily replied without hesitation. "Everyone needs a friend." She said it with the simple honesty of a child who meant every word. Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. He could not believe what he was seeing. He wanted to protect his daughter, to keep her safe, but he realized she had done something no leader, no warrior, no diplomat had managed in all these years. She had reached the Queen of Galaxies with nothing but kindness. His heart pounded with fear and pride, a mixture so strong it nearly broke him. The Queen leaned back on her throne, her eyes never leaving Lily. The chamber remained silent, the attendants and guards too stunned to move. In that stillness, something shifted. The Queen, untouchable for so long, had allowed herself a moment of warmth. It was as though the universe itself held its breath, waiting to see what would come next. Daniel slowly moved forward, placing his hand gently on Lily's shoulder. She looked up at him with a calm smile, as if nothing unusual had happened. He whispered softly, "Come on, sweetheart, let's go." But the Queen's voice stopped him once more. "Stay," she said, her tone soft but commanding. "I wish to hear more from the child." Daniel froze again, unsure if this was a blessing or a curse. But Lily simply nodded and said, "Okay." She sat down on the polished floor, her little legs crossed as if she were about to tell a story. The Queen of Galaxies watched her with a quiet intensity, her smile fading but her eyes still bright. And in that moment, Daniel realized their lives had changed forever. The chamber remained still after Lily's words. The attendants kept their heads bowed, too afraid to even breathe loudly. The guards shifted nervously, their weapons heavy in their hands, but none of them dared to act without command. Daniel felt his heart pounding so hard he thought the Queen must hear it echo across the great room. He held his daughter's hand, uncertain if this would end in punishment or something else he could not imagine. The Queen's eyes stayed on Lily, and for the first time in many long years she seemed curious. Her voice, soft but full of weight, filled the air once more. "Tell me, child," the Queen said, "why do you not fear me like the others?" Lily tilted her head slightly as if surprised by the question. She spoke with the simple honesty of a child who had not yet learned the fear that chained others. "Because you don't look scary to me. You look sad. My dad says people who are sad need someone to talk to. I thought maybe you need that too." Her words carried across the hall, reaching everyone's ears. No one had ever dared to speak to the Queen in such a way. It was not the speech of kings or diplomats, not words weighed with strategy or fear, but pure and plain. The Queen did not respond immediately. Instead, her gaze lingered on Lily, and something in her face shifted as if a memory had stirred deep inside. Daniel tightened his hold on Lily's hand, wanting to pull her away, but he could not. He felt as if moving too quickly would shatter the fragile balance in the room. His mind raced with every story he had ever heard about the Queen's cold justice. But he also saw something strange in her posture. Her eyes were not hard with anger, but softened with something almost human. At last, the Queen spoke again. "You would be my friend?" she asked. Her tone was curious, almost uncertain, as though she did not understand the meaning of the word anymore. "Yes," Lily said, nodding. "Everyone needs a friend." Daniel felt weak in his knees. He wanted to fall to the floor and beg for mercy, but he stayed upright, holding his daughter close. To his shock, the Queen did not dismiss Lily's offer. Instead, she leaned back against her throne, silent but thoughtful. The attendants whispered quietly to one another, their voices full of disbelief. The guards lowered their weapons further, unsure of what this moment meant. Never in the history of the Citadel had anything like this happened. The Queen raised her hand and the whispers fell quiet at once. Her gaze shifted to Daniel. "You are her father?" Daniel bowed low, his voice trembling. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am her father. Please forgive her boldness. She speaks with innocence. I did not mean for her to disturb you." The Queen's eyes lingered on him. "You are a janitor, a man who cleans the halls of the Citadel." "Yes," Daniel whispered. "That is all I am. I only wish to care for my daughter and keep her safe." The Queen was silent again, studying him. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she gave a simple order. "Leave us!" The attendants froze. "Your Majesty?" One of them dared to ask, but the Queen's eyes flashed and the command was enough. They bowed and left the chamber, their robes trailing behind them. The guards hesitated, unsure of abandoning their post, but her raised hand gave them no choice. Soon the chamber was empty, save for the Queen, Daniel, and Lily. The silence was heavy but not hostile. Lily sat cross-legged on the polished floor, looking up at the throne as though she were listening to a bedtime story. The Queen studied her carefully before speaking again. "Child, do you know who I am?" "Yes," Lily answered. "You're the Queen. Everyone says you're powerful and scary, but I don't think you're scary. I think you're lonely." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to shush her, but the Queen did not lash out. Instead, her expression softened again, almost like a shadow of a smile. "Lonely," she repeated, as if tasting the word for the first time in centuries. "Perhaps you are not wrong." Daniel finally found his voice. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "please understand she is only a child. Her words are not meant to offend." The Queen looked at him, and for a moment Daniel thought he saw sadness in her eyes. "She does not offend," the Queen replied. "Her words remind me of what was once forgotten." She looked back to Lily. "You offer friendship to one who has crushed empires and silenced kings. Do you not fear that I might hurt you?" Lily shook her head. "No, because if you wanted to hurt me, you would have already. But you didn't. That means you don't really want to." The Queen's lips curved ever so slightly. It was not a full smile, but it was something. Her voice grew softer, almost wistful. "It has been many years since anyone has spoken to me without fear. Many years since I have heard laughter in these halls." Lily tilted her head again. "I can make you laugh if you want." Daniel nearly fainted at her boldness, but before he could say anything, Lily told a small story about her favorite stuffed animal back on Earth. She described how she used to pretend it could talk, giving it silly voices and making it dance. To Daniel's shock, the Queen gave a sound that had not been heard in centuries. A quiet laugh. It was soft, faint, but real. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. He stared at the Queen in disbelief, realizing his daughter had done what no leader, no warrior, no diplomat had ever achieved. The Queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes dimmer, gentler. "Tell me about your world," she said to Lily. "Tell me about Earth." Lily launched into an innocent description of green trees, blue skies, rivers, and the small home she had shared with her father. She spoke of the smell of flowers, the taste of fresh fruit, and the games she played outside. Daniel listened stunned as his daughter spoke of Earth as if it were the most precious place in the universe. The Queen listened quietly, drinking in every detail, her face unreadable but softened. When Lily paused, the Queen turned to Daniel. "And you," she said, "what is it like to live as a man of such simple duties?" Daniel swallowed hard before answering. "I do what I must, Your Majesty. I work hard so my daughter can be safe. That is all that matters to me. I cannot give her much, but I can give her love and a roof over her head." The Queen's gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, Daniel did not feel only fear. He felt as though she were truly listening, as though his simple words carried weight in this grand hall. The silence that followed was not heavy with dread, but filled with thought. Finally, the Queen spoke. "You are both unusual. Most who stand before me seek power, favor, or mercy. Yet you bring me only honesty and kindness. Perhaps there is more strength in that than I have allowed myself to believe." Lily smiled brightly. "That's what my dad says too. He says being kind is strong." The Queen looked at Lily for a long time and then at Daniel. Perhaps I will keep speaking with you both. There is much I wish to remember, and perhaps much I wish to learn again. Daniel bowed deeply, unsure if he should feel relief or greater fear, but when he looked at Lily, who was still smiling without worry, he felt a strange spark of hope. For the first time since arriving at the Citadel, he thought maybe their lives could become something more than just survival, and in the Queen's quiet eyes, he saw the first light of change flickering after centuries of silence. News spread quickly across the Citadel after the Queen allowed the human child and her father to stay and speak with her. The attendants who had witnessed the moment whispered in disbelief. The guards exchanged stories in hushed voices, their hands trembling on their weapons as they tried to make sense of what they had seen. No one could believe that the Queen of Galaxies, the silent ruler who had ignored kings and destroyed arrogant lords, had not only spoken, but had smiled because of a little girl. The rumor grew as fast as light traveling through space, reaching every corner of the empire. Some believed it was a sign of weakness. Others believed it was a miracle. But all agreed that something had changed. Daniel knew the stories would spread, and that worried him more than anything. He had always lived a quiet life, trying to remain unseen. He swept the floors, kept his head down, and prayed his daughter would stay safe. Now he feared that the attention of the galaxy had shifted toward them. He wanted to hide, to take Lily away, but there was nowhere to run. The Citadel was surrounded by fleets, and the Queen herself had chosen them. To refuse her would be more dangerous than to accept her summons. The Queen sent for them again the next day. Daniel hesitated, his hands shaking as he prepared Lily's clothes. He wanted her to look neat, though he had nothing fine to offer. She wore the same dress she had worn the day before, a simple one patched in places, but she wore it proudly. Lily did not fear the Queen, and she seemed almost excited to return. Daniel, on the other hand, felt his stomach twist with dread. Still, he took her hand and walked with her to the great chamber. When they arrived, the hall was empty again, save for the Queen on her throne. Her presence still filled the room with power, but there was something different now. She did not seem like a statue carved from light. She seemed alive, waiting, curious. She spoke first. "Come forward, child." Lily walked without hesitation, pulling her father along. She looked up at the Queen with the same bright smile. "Hello again," she said warmly, as if she were greeting a friend at school. "I thought maybe you'd like to hear another story today." The Queen tilted her head. "What story will you tell me, child?" Lily sat on the floor, crossing her legs comfortably. She began to tell a story about her favorite day on Earth, a day when her father had taken her to a park with tall trees and a small lake. She described how she had tried to catch frogs and how Daniel had made her laugh by pretending to slip on the grass. The Queen listened quietly, her glowing eyes fixed on Lily. She did not interrupt, did not frown, but let the child's words flow like a gentle stream. When Lily finished, the Queen looked at Daniel. "Is this true?" Daniel nodded, his voice low. "Yes, Your Majesty. It was just a small day, nothing grand, but it was special to her. And so it was special to me." The Queen's gaze lingered on him. "Small days," she said softly, "are sometimes greater than the grandest victories." I had forgotten that. Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had expected danger, punishment, or cold judgment. Instead, he saw a ruler who seemed to be remembering what it meant to be human, even if she was not human at all. The Queen continued to call for them, day after day. At first, the conversations were simple. She asked Lily about Earth, about games, about food, and about her favorite songs. Lily answered with joy, sometimes even humming small tunes in the echoing hall. The Queen would listen, sometimes closing her eyes as if to capture the sound. Slowly, she began to ask Daniel questions too. She asked about his work, his struggles, and what it meant to be a father. Daniel answered honestly, though he always bowed his head. "I am not important, Your Majesty," he would say. "I only clean floors. My only duty is to care for my daughter." The Queen disagreed. "You are important. You keep the halls of my citadel clean. You carry a burden that others would not. And you raise a child with love. That is no small thing." Her words left Daniel speechless. Never before had anyone spoken of his life with respect. For years he had been ignored, dismissed as a man of no value. Yet here, in the throne room of the Queen of Galaxies, his simple duties were acknowledged. He felt both humbled and shaken. Lily, unaware of the weight of these words, would always smile and add, "I told you, Dad. You are important." Outside the chamber, The whispers grew louder. Leaders from distant worlds began to argue. Some feared that the queen was changing, that her silence and coldness had been her greatest weapon and now she was losing it. Others saw it as a chance, a new opening to speak with her through the humans. Letters and messages poured into the citadel, begging for audience, but the queen refused them all. She spoke only to Lily and Daniel. This made many rulers uneasy. Why should a janitor and his child hold the queen's ear when mighty empires were denied? Daniel began to sense the danger growing. One evening, as he tucked Lily into her small bed in the servants' quarters, he whispered, "Lily, you must be careful. People are talking. They don't like that the queen listens to us." Lily looked at him with calm eyes. "But we're not doing anything wrong. We're just talking to her. She needs someone." Daniel sighed deeply. "The galaxy doesn't always see things the way we do. Power makes people afraid, and when they are afraid, they can do terrible things." Lily reached out and held his hand. "It will be okay, Dad. You always say kindness is strong. That's all we're giving her." He hugged her close, his heart heavy with worry. He wanted to believe her, but he knew the galaxy was not simple. Still, her words gave him a small spark of hope. The next day, the queen asked Daniel a question that surprised him. "Why do you endure so much for your daughter? You could have abandoned her as others might. Why carry such a heavy burden?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady despite his fear. "Because she is my daughter. She is my whole world. If I have nothing else, I will still have her. Everything I do, every step I take is for her. That is what it means to be a father." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You speak with truth. Once long ago, I trusted someone as you trust your child. They betrayed me. Since then, I have spoken to no one. Silence was my shield." Daniel bowed his head. "I am sorry for your pain, Your Majesty." The queen's eyes glowed faintly, softer than before. "Perhaps it is time I learned to lower my shield." These words filled Daniel with both hope and dread. Hope that maybe the queen was changing for the better. Dread that others would not accept it. Already he sensed plots forming, whispers of jealousy and fear. But in that moment, sitting in the chamber with his daughter by his side, he allowed himself to believe that kindness might truly reshape the galaxy. For Lily, these moments were never heavy with fear. To her, the queen was not a distant ruler, but someone who needed a friend. She laughed. She told stories, and she shared drawings she made on scraps of paper. One day she brought a picture she had drawn of herself, her father, and the queen sitting together under a tree on Earth. The queen held the picture in her hands for a long time, her glowing eyes fixed on it. For the first time in centuries, she felt something stir inside her, a fragile, forgotten feeling of hope. The citadel had never been so alive. For centuries, the halls had echoed with silence, broken only by the formal steps of guards and the distant hum of energy that powered the fortress among the stars. Now there was laughter, small but real, spilling from the throne chamber. It came from Lily, the little human girl, and to everyone's disbelief, the queen sometimes joined with a soft chuckle. These sounds spread unease through the servants and attendants. No one had ever imagined that their ruler, known for her coldness and fearsome commands, would allow such warmth within her presence. To some, it was a sign of hope. To others, it was a threat. Daniel felt the shift every day. He had once been invisible, just another worker pushing his broom across endless floors. Now everywhere he walked, eyes followed him. Some were curious, others suspicious, and a few were filled with envy. He did not like the attention. He wanted only to keep Lily safe. But he could not deny the truth. Something had changed between the queen and his daughter, and now the galaxy would notice. One evening, the queen requested their company once more. This time, she did not sit in silence upon her throne. Instead, she stepped down from it, her robes flowing like streams of light, her eyes softer than before. Daniel felt his breath catch in his throat. To see her leave her throne was rare, and it made the moment heavy with meaning. She stood before Lily and Daniel, her presence still powerful but no longer distant. "Show me more of your world," she said to Lily. "Show me Earth through your eyes." Lily held out another drawing she had made on a piece of paper. This one showed a small house with smoke rising from its chimney, trees swaying around it, and two figures holding hands beneath the sun. "This is me and my dad at home," Lily explained proudly. "We used to sit outside and watch the sunset together. It was our favorite time." The queen took the paper in her hands. She stared at it longer than anyone expected. "Sunsets," she whispered. "I have not seen such a thing in centuries. Here in the Citadel, there is only the endless night of stars. Daniel spoke softly. A sunset reminds us that every day can end with beauty, even if the day was hard. It tells us there will be another tomorrow. The Queen's glowing eyes lifted to him. Do you believe tomorrow always comes? Daniel hesitated, then answered with honesty. As long as I live, I will fight to see another tomorrow for my daughter. Even if I must struggle, even if I must endure, I will not stop. For her, I will always keep going. The Queen studied him, her expression unreadable. At last she said, You are stronger than most warriors I have known. Not because of weapons, but because of your love. Her words struck Daniel deeply. He had always believed himself to be weak, unimportant, just a man with a mop. Yet here the most powerful ruler in the Galaxies called him strong. He bowed his head, unable to speak. Days turned into weeks, and the meetings continued. Lily's laughter filled the halls. The Queen grew more open, asking questions about ordinary life, about food cooked on stoves, about the taste of fruit from trees. Daniel answered as best as he could, describing simple meals of bread and stew, the sweetness of apples, the smell of rain on earth. The Queen listened with fascination, as if each detail was a treasure. The Citadel, once a place of fear, began to feel almost human in its heart. But outside those walls, the galaxy stirred. Leaders of great empires grew restless. They sent messages demanding audiences, but the Queen denied them all. She had no time for kings or generals. Her time belonged to a janitor and his child. This decision enraged the powerful. Some whispered that the humans had cast a spell. Others feared that the Queen's heart was softening, weakening her rule. Whispers turned into plans, and plans turned into schemes. Daniel sensed the danger growing. He saw the looks of suspicion from attendants, the cold stares of guards who wondered why their Queen favored a simple man and his daughter. He felt the weight of fear pressing on him, but he never let Lily see it. He told her stories at night, tucked her into bed, and reminded her that she was safe with him. Inside, though, he worried each day that someone would strike at them. One evening, the Queen asked Daniel to walk with her in the grand gardens of the Citadel. They were not like Earth's gardens. The plants glowed faintly, bending toward unseen energy, their leaves shimmering with colors unknown to Earth. Daniel followed carefully, his hands folded, while Lily skipped happily among the paths. The Queen watched the child with a look of softness that few had ever seen on her face. Your daughter is unafraid, she said quietly. She reminds me of what I lost long ago. Once I too trusted without fear. But betrayal cut deep and I closed my heart. Daniel nodded. Pain changes us. But sometimes love can change us back. The Queen's eyes lingered on him. Do you truly believe such a thing is possible? Daniel looked at Lily, who was humming to herself as she gathered glowing petals from the ground. I believe it. Because I see it in her, and now I see it in you. For a long moment they walked in silence. Then the Queen said softly, Perhaps you are right. Perhaps it is not too late. But even as hope grew between them, danger moved in the shadows. In secret chambers of distant worlds, alien rulers plotted. They feared the Queen was slipping from their control. If she placed her trust in humans, if she allowed kindness to guide her instead of fear, their power would be threatened. Some believed the humans must be destroyed. Others whispered of assassins, of strikes in the night that could end the girl, before she could change the Queen's heart completely. Daniel did not know the details, but he felt the storm coming. One night he held Lily close as she fell asleep and whispered, No matter what happens, I will protect you. His eyes burned with determination. He was only a janitor, a man with no weapons and no power, but he was a father, and that made him stronger than he ever believed. The next day the Queen summoned them again. This time her face was grave. I hear whispers, she said. There are those who fear what is happening here. They fear your presence, little one, and they plot in darkness. Daniel's heart froze. He had expected danger, but hearing it from the Queen's lips made it real. He fell to his knees. Your Majesty, please let us leave. If we are a danger to you, we will go. Just let my daughter live. The Queen looked down at him, her expression firm. No, you will not leave. To harm you is to harm me. Let the galaxy tremble if it must. I will not allow them to touch you. Her words echoed like thunder in the chamber. Daniel looked up, his eyes wide with shock. He had never expected protection from the Queen herself. Lily, still innocent, only smiled and said, See, Dad? I told you she just needed a friend. The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile. But behind her calm, she knew the battle was coming. Enemies would not rest. They would strike soon, and she would have to decide how far she would go to protect the bond she had formed with the janitor and his daughter. For the first time in centuries, she did not feel alone. But for the first time in centuries, she also had something to lose. The warning of danger soon proved true. The citadel, once steady and quiet, grew tense. The guards doubled their patrols. Attendants whispered as they moved quickly through the halls, their eyes darting nervously. Word had spread across the galaxies that some rulers were unhappy with the Queen's new change. They saw her moments with the human janitor and his daughter as a threat. For the first time in many years, the Queen was not feared for her silence but challenged because of her growing kindness. Enemies began to move in secret, and even the walls of the citadel felt heavy with unrest. Daniel felt the fear pressing on him every day. He never let it show to Lily, but his heart was always uneasy. He kept her close, walking with her at all times, never letting her wander far. He knew he was only one man with no weapon, no training, nothing but his love as a shield. Still, he promised himself he would protect her, no matter the cost. Lily remained innocent, unaware of the storm gathering around them. She held the Queen's hand, told her stories, and spoke with the same bright voice as if nothing in the world could touch her. One evening, the Queen called for them again. This time her face was set in steel, her eyes sharp with fire. Daniel bowed low, his heart racing. Lily only smiled and waved. The Queen spoke with a voice that shook the chamber. "There are those who plan to harm you," she said. "They fear the bond between us. They fear what your kindness has awakened in me." Daniel lowered his head. "Your Majesty, we never wish to bring you trouble. If it would end this danger, let us leave. We will go anywhere you command. Just spare my daughter." The Queen stepped down from her throne and stood before him. Her presence was immense, yet her eyes softened as they fell on Lily. "No," she said firmly. "You will not leave. If harm comes to you, it is an attack on me. The galaxy must learn that kindness is not weakness. They will not touch you while I still rule." Her words echoed like thunder spreading across the citadel. Soon they traveled far beyond, carried on signals and whispers until every system knew. The Queen of Galaxies had declared protection over a janitor and his child. No one could understand it. Some called it madness. Others saw it as strength. But all realized it was a turning point. The enemies did not wait long. A coalition of rulers from distant worlds sent ships toward the citadel. They believed the Queen had lost her edge. They thought her devotion to humans made her vulnerable. Their fleets gathered in the darkness of space, ready to strike. Inside the citadel, alarms rang out as guards prepared for battle. Daniel held Lily close, trembling as he heard the rumble of war beyond the walls. He knew this was more than he could bear, but there was no escape. He prayed silently for strength. The Queen rose, her robes flowing like rivers of light. She looked upon Daniel and Lily, then turned to the great hall of her commanders. "Ready the defenses," she ordered. Her voice carried the weight of stars colliding. "But know this, we do not fight only for power. We fight because they dare to threaten what is mine." Her armies moved swiftly, preparing the great fleets, charging the weapons of the citadel. Yet the Queen herself did not leave the throne chamber. Instead, she stayed with Daniel and Lily. Daniel could not understand it. "Your Majesty, you should lead them," he said. "The battle needs you." The Queen's gaze was calm but strong. "I will lead from here. My presence alone is enough to guide them. But I will not abandon you, not now." The battle raged outside. Explosions shook the stars, flashes of fire streaked across the void. The citadel's shields glowed with force as enemy ships struck against them. Inside, Daniel clutched Lily as the floor trembled. She looked up at him with wide eyes but did not cry. "It will be okay, Dad," she whispered. "She's with us." The Queen extended her hand toward the air. Energy surged from her like waves of light, traveling through the citadel, through the fleet, striking fear into the hearts of her enemies. Her voice carried across the channels, reaching every ship. "You dare threaten what is dear to me? Then you will face my wrath." The enemy fleets faltered. They had expected weakness, but instead they found fury greater than they had ever seen. Ships broke apart under her command. Entire squadrons fled in terror. Within hours, the coalition was broken. Their fleets scattered like dust in the wind. The citadel stood unharmed, its light burning brighter than before. When the battle ended, silence fell once more. The queen lowered her hand, her power fading back into calm. Daniel could hardly breathe. He had witnessed the might of a ruler who could command the galaxies themselves, yet she had fought not for conquest but for them. He looked at Lily, who only smiled as if she had always known the queen would protect them. The queen turned to them. "It is done," she said. "No one will dare touch you now. They will know that to harm you is to challenge me, and none will succeed." Daniel fell to his knees, overcome with emotion. "Your Majesty, I have nothing to offer you. I am only a janitor. Why would you do all this for us?" The queen bent down, her eyes level with his. "Because even the strongest rulers need to be reminded of what truly matters. You gave me that gift. Your daughter gave me that gift. You reminded me of kindness, of love, of hope. For that, I will protect you as long as I reign." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He bowed his head deeply. "Then I will serve you with all that I am." Lily stepped forward and placed her small hand in the queen's. "I told you," she said with a bright smile. "You just needed a friend." For the first time in centuries, the queen's smile was not faint or forced. It was full, radiant, carrying warmth that filled the chamber. She held Lily's hand gently, her heart no longer closed. Around them, the citadel felt different, lighter, as though a heavy shadow had been lifted. Word of the battle and the queen's decree spread across the galaxies. Civilizations that had once feared her silence now spoke of her new strength. Some rulers bent their knees in respect, realizing they could not stand against her will. Others watched with caution, but none dared to strike again. The Queen of Galaxies was no longer untouchable for her coldness, but unshakable for her compassion. Daniel returned to his simple duties, though he was never treated the same. To the people of the Citadel, he was no longer invisible. He was the father whose daughter had changed the queen. He still swept floors and carried buckets, but now he did so with a quiet pride. For he knew that even the smallest man could shape the fate of the stars. Lily continued to bring laughter to the halls. She told stories, shared drawings, and filled the queen's days with light. And the queen listened, truly listened, cherishing each moment. She no longer ruled in silence. She ruled with a voice that welcomed, guided by the kindness of a child. In the endless night of the cosmos, where empires rose and fell like waves, a new bond had been born. A janitor, his daughter, and the Queen of Galaxies had shown that sometimes the greatest strength was not in fear or power, but in friendship and love. And in that bond, the galaxy found a new hope for tomorrow.